It's being recorded now. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So thank you, Swamiji, once again. So my question is, can first principle reasoning be applied to our everyday experiences instead of refuting the Samkhya logic to conclude that there is one consciousness? And if so, can you please explain or provide pointers? Thank you.
All right. About this first principles reasoning, um, one way of understanding Advaita Vedanta is through metaphors, stories, imagery, something that cannot be directly stated or pointed out. We use metaphors. So something like the clay and the pot, or the snake and the rope, or stories of the 10th man, trying to illustrate something which cannot be directly said. However, first principles reasoning would be you appeal to our experience itself and reason about it directly. The advantage, first principle reasoning from first principle is difficult, but that's the way genuine discoveries are also made. So yes, one consciousness from first principles would be, I'll give you two answers. One is the direct one. If we can, in our understanding, clearly see consciousness separated from body, senses, mind. So here's the body which feels conscious. Just note that I feel conscious here. I don't feel that I am conscious in the computer or in the table. I am conscious here in this, I am here in this body. Then the senses feel conscious, and in their different modalities. There's a kind of visual consciousness, an auditory consciousness. There is a tactile consciousness, taste and smell. Then even more clearly, consciousness is in the mind, where thoughts, emotions, memories, ideas, they all shine with awareness. It's mostly awareness, it seems, compared to the physical body outside or senses. If we can separate the body, senses, and the mind from consciousness and see consciousness as it is, and then that see consciousness as it is has to be put within quotes, because you cannot see consciousness as it is. You are that consciousness as it is. If at least an appreciation of that can be done, then we'll begin to see it must be the same everywhere, because all the distinguishing factors are gone. Bodies are separate. We can clearly see bodies are separate. They're located in time and space and they're separate from each other. They are also perceivable. And so we can count their different bodies. Minds are also different. You can notice this by behavior, by opinion polls. You'll have different ideas. But apart from body, sense, mind, how would you distinguish one consciousness from another? Remember, it will be contentless. A good way of understanding this would be dreamless sleep. In deep sleep, if we are conscious at all, if consciousness is there as Advaita Vedanta claims there is, then that consciousness will be the same. The deep sleep experience is exactly the same. Even Upanishads point it out. It is the same for the king and the poor person, for the elephant and the mosquito. It is the same. Deep sleep would be awareness with blankness, not even the sense of any subject and object. All the subject and object, as it were, mushed together, one unbroken mass. So there, if you see, deep sleep experience is same for everybody. If deep sleep experience is same for everybody, how much more so that the one consciousness which illumines deep sleep, it would be literally the same everywhere. And how would you break that? And deep sleep comes and goes. So one person's deep sleep is not another person's deep sleep. And deep sleep also has the seeds of our personality. So what we are as persons, it's not perceivable in the deep sleep, but when we wake up, then we are different persons. Our programming is different, so to say. Our subconscious is different. Our samskaras are different. So we are different persons. Even in our dreams are different. So the seeds of waking and dreaming, the personality is in the deep sleep. So deep sleep, the contents of deep sleep are different for each person. But the experience of deep sleep is a uniformity, a uniform blankness. Unless there's a split between subject-object, difference is not possible. That deep sleep also shows, oh, why did this happen? Oh, this thing, I think it's automatic. Nowadays, so many things are there.
It must be this your sign language, Marge.
Yeah.
Right. So, someplace it has to be turned off. Anyway, so if deep sleep is, do you have to pin my video to that or something for the recording?
You are pinned, Maharaj. We see you here.
Okay. In that case, the witness of deep sleep must be the same for all. How would you distinguish without body, without mind, without senses? How would you distinguish one consciousness from another? And as somebody said, it's I think Heisenberg or somebody, that consciousness is that singular for which there is no plural. All right, so this is one answer. The other answer is through the debates between Sankhya and Vedanta. I've gone through that a number of times. Sankhya says many consciousnesses, and Advaita Vedanta says one consciousness. We are all one consciousness. Many minds, many bodies, but we are all one consciousness. And the arguments Sankhya gives are easily demolished by Vedanta. Arguments are like, for example, if we are one consciousness, how is that possible? Because if you're all one consciousness, then the birth of one would be the birth of all, the death of one would be the death of all. But that's not true. The answer to that would be birth and death pertain to the body, even in Sankhya. Why would it distinguish one consciousness from another? Another argument is, well, if you're all one consciousness, if somebody is awake, everybody will be awake. If we are all one consciousness, somebody falls asleep, everybody will fall asleep. Again, the answer is pretty simple. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep are conditions or states of the mind, not of consciousness. So one mind is awake, another one can very well be asleep, and consciousness can be illumining the awake mind here and the sleeping mind there. So in that way, another argument would be, well, if we are all one consciousness, then if my guru becomes enlightened, we will all become enlightened. One knowledge of one will be the knowledge of all others. No, it's a good question which illustrates a very natural confusion. The confusion would be, if I am one consciousness in all bodies and minds, then wouldn't I know the contents of the minds of all beings? It's like right now I know the contents of this mind. So if I'm one consciousness in all bodies and minds, I should be able to know the contents of all people. But that's not true. See, the mistake which is made is, in knowledge, mind is involved. So when I say I know something, it means consciousness plus this mind knows something. Similarly, with regard to the contents of this mind, knowledge is possible only through this mind. So consciousness illumining this mind, which has introspective knowledge of its own states, its own memories and personality. That might not be true, that the mind will not have, in fact, access to other minds. In each mind, there is an internal awareness, internal knowledge, which can be illumined by the same consciousness. So like this is the second category of answers to your question. It is possible that we can have one consciousness without having knowledge of the contents of every mind. This is the second type of arguments, which is like the debates between Sankhya and Advaita Vedanta. Advaita saying there is one consciousness in all beings, Sankhya saying that no, consciousness in different beings are different consciousnesses.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Okay. Guru.
Hello. Again, thank you so much for taking this time. Really appreciate it. I have a simple question. So one of my takeaways from the retreat is that I and maybe others need to use a combination of Jnana, Bhakti, Karma, and Raj Yoga to make spiritual progress. However, as I start to practice Bhakti Yoga again in my life, I have a dilemma. Bhakti Yoga requires me to have some kind of a blind faith, and also I need to believe in miracles or mystic experiences and rituals, and to some extent even believe in quid pro quo, because most of the Bhakti Yoga books in one way or another suggest that I do bhakti and I get something in return. And so that is the struggle I'm starting to have. On one hand, I want to practice bhakti and jnana yoga and karma yoga together, but practicing bhakti yoga, I'm struggling to do it because of the reasons I mentioned. So could you please provide some help, some insight, so I can practice all of them together?
Yes.
Thank you again.
Thank you. That's a good question. The question is the practice of one yoga or practice of all the yogas together. And as the gentleman has just said, He is convinced that all the yogas have to be practiced together. But only the problem is the stumbling block, a couple of stumbling blocks he has mentioned about Bhakti Yoga. So we'll talk about that. First of all, this question of practicing all the yogas together, this is natural. All the traditional paths, it's not just Swami Vivekananda who has talked about the harmony of 4 yogas. In fact, if you go back to Shankara and Ramanuja and others, Madhva also, all of them talk about bhakti, all of them talk about meditation, all of them talk about jnana. Only the hierarchy is different in the different paradigms. The dualistic Vedantic schools are what is called bhakti pradhana. The central practice is bhakti. And jnana and karma, in their case, mostly karma means rituals. Karma and meditation, if at all, those are like supporting roles. But the hero of the play is bhakti. Whereas in Advaita Vedanta, the central practice is jnana, and all the other yogas are there but as supporting. So karma yoga is there, which purifies the mind. Meditation is there, which concentrates the mind. And bhakti does both of them, concentrate and purify the mind also. But it's ultimately jnana, which is through the analysis of the Vedantic texts, we realize that we are Brahman, and that's the goal. That's Shankara's approach. Swami Vivekananda gives a, let us say, the general case that whatever your approach is, you must have the harmony of these 4 yogas in your life. That's the wholesome spiritual life. He also mentions that any one of them can take you to perfection. So to enlightenment and liberation. Jnana can do that, bhakti can do that, meditation can do that, and karma also, which is, he is exceptional that way, Swami Vivekananda. The traditional acharyas always gave karma a subsidiary role, but Swami Vivekananda said karma yoga also can take you to perfection. All right. So the harmony is recommended strongly, traditionally also recommended, only in a hierarchy depending on the acharya. In the case of Vivekananda, harmony is recommended. Now, the specific question about bhakti, 2 questions. Both are important to understand 2 aspects of bhakti. One is, how do I accept bhakti because it requires some kind of blind faith? And the answer here is, it's faith. There's no doubt about it. It's faith. Bhakti cannot start without faith. If I start by being skeptical, well, you can be a jnani, you can start by being skeptical. You can even be a yogi, start by being skeptical, but I do the practices and then I get results. Empirical approach. But in bhakti, you can't start like that. In bhakti, one has to start with some modicum of faith. But what I want to say is, it's not blind faith. It's not a superstition. You have the backing of millennia of spiritual traditions. In Hinduism, there are multiple bhakti traditions. From a Hindu perspective, Christianity is predominantly a bhakti tradition. Islam is predominantly a bhakti tradition. So is Judaism and Zoroastrianism. Now, and in Hinduism, as I said, there are multiple bhakti traditions. So you have the backing of millennia of cross-cultural, cross-civilizational, authority behind you, that bhakti is real. There is really a God, and devotional relationship with God is a genuine spiritual path. This is one. Second is, it's not a blind faith because the evidence is there. The evidence of the lives of great enlightened persons, great bhaktas throughout the history. Sri Ramakrishna in our own times, but Mirabai and Kabir Das and Guru Nanak and many, Tulsi Das and many others, the Alvars, so many, the saints of Maharashtra, so many others. So a huge body of evidence of practitioners of bhakti who became very saintly in their lives. So put them together, scriptural backing, that is from multiple traditions, multiple religions across time, and the evidence of many practitioners throughout history, throughout the world, who have practiced bhakti. On that basis, I believe. Why do I believe in God? Is it a blind faith? No, I believe after reading the life of Sri Ramakrishna. It gives me faith that this person cannot be lying. This person is definitely reliable, and hence there must be this thing called God. So this is faith. This is still faith. I still don't know whether there is God, but I strongly believe that this is the case, that there is that God exists. So this is the answer to the first question. Is it, when I practice bhakti, does it require blind faith? It requires faith, but not blind faith. Second question is that, again, this question of miracles, some kind of give and take, the quid pro quo kind thing comes in bhakti. I worship God and then I get something in return from God. My prayers of various sorts are supposed to be answered by God. Sometimes they are, sometimes they are not. This whole thing can make a spiritual seeker uneasy. Now remember here, when we talk about bhakti yoga here, we are talking about bhakti as a path to God realization. The whole of what we are doing in these retreats and what the Vedanta Society is all about, or is spirituality. Spirituality has only one and one purpose: God realization, which is true of Jnana Yoga and Dhyana, Patanjali Yoga. They are all spiritual paths. In bhakti, the matter becomes confusing because bhakti can be used for both things. One is God realization, enlightenment, but the other one is worldly prosperity also. So Sri Krishna himself says, and though that's valid, Sri Krishna himself says, I have 4 kinds of devotees: Artha, Jigyasu, Artharthi, Jnanicha. People who are in trouble, worldly trouble. Somebody is sick, somebody is in some kind of danger, and they pray to God and hoping for some miraculous rescue or something like that, help. Then the second kind of devotee is the one who wants something, not in danger, but has some worldly desire, maybe money, success, something, or winning an election, for example. So these are all worldly prayers. Now, the point to be noted here is, and Krishna says there's nothing wrong in it. They are not false. They are also my devotees. However, we belong to the third category, Jigyasu. Jigyasu means inquirer, spiritual seeker. I don't want anything worldly from God. It's like Narendranath Datta going around and asking, have you seen God? Can God be seen? How do I see God? That is my quest. And that's why bhakti becomes a yoga. Those who do bhakti for the sake of money or worldly success, or even being rescued by God from some trouble, that is bhakti, no doubt, because that's faith in God. But that's not bhakti yoga. Yoga is only for spiritual purposes, for God realization, enlightenment. So this is the answer. Thank you.
Okay. Sudesh? Sudesh, unmute here.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I have a quick clarification to Guru's question about Bhakti Yoga. So, Bhakti Yoga, in my mind, somehow a little bit reinforces the faith in duality and on the practice of Advaita Vedanta, why we are seeking the non-duality. So, are they in conflict? That is just a question that occurred to me about after Guru's question. And my question is, how do I find purpose? How do I find my life's purpose?
All right, 2 questions. First one, let me deal with the question about duality and non-duality. If you practice bhakti yoga, there seems to be an element of duality. That is correct. There is always an element of duality when you practice bhakti, because there is always the lover and the beloved, worshipper and the worshipped, and the believer and the God you believe in. So that the two is implied there. In bhakti yoga, it's always a relationship. In Advaita, what we are aiming for is an identity. What am I? And not I in relation to something else. But let me put it this way. They are not contradictory, because broadly speaking, in all these various ways, bhakti or jnana or dhyana or karma, we are trying to get in touch with a spiritual reality. Now, some of them have a dualistic paradigm, some of them have a non-dualistic paradigm. Like in jnana, you have a non-dualistic paradigm, that I am that entity. But in all, we are trying to get in touch with the same spiritual reality. That was Sri Ramakrishna's insight, that the reality is the same one. He would say, like a pizza, if you take. He didn't use pizza, he used the Indian word, the pitha. If you eat it this way and if you eat it this way or that way, it still tastes the same. So all these yogas are trying to eat or taste God or taste that ultimate reality in various ways. Therefore, they are not contradictory. Though they intellectually it seems contradictory. Non-duality seems contradictory to duality. But since you are contacting the same reality, it is not contradictory in that sense. In another more simpler sense, even when we are trying to achieve non-duality, all our attempts are through duality. When we are studying Vedanta, even if you are a monk staying in the Himalayas, well, you have to go and beg for your food. You have to take a bath in the Ganges. You have to sit down and meditate. All of those are dualistic activities. So if we can do all of those activities, why not? What harm has God done? Why not do a little worship of God also? This is another point. But if you say this worship of God affirms or strengthens duality, well, eating also strengthens duality. Walking also strengthens duality. Breathing also strengthens duality, because I am identifying with one body and then carrying on my usual activities. Though that's all in a Dvaita world. Even studying Vedanta also affirms dualistic activity. But one must see what kind of dualistic thing is affirmed. One is a worldly kind of dualism. This world is real. I am a separate individual. Now I have to get things which I like, raga, and avoid things which I dislike or fear, dvesha. This is gross dualism. But if I catch hold of that spiritual reality, which will take me towards non-dualism, it's still dualism, but through that dualism, I go towards oneness and not towards manyness. Then it is helpful. Sri Ramakrishna used the terms Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. So I guess, I can go on. And then there is also something called Advaita Bhakti. After realizing Brahman, that I am Brahman, in a Jivan Mukta's life, the body still continues. So that person still sees the world and still sees this body, and at the same time same time knows that I am Brahman, this one non-dual reality. Now, after that also one can practice bhakti. That would be an Advaitic bhakti, with full knowledge of non-duality. Yet I express love of divinity, of God. In the Bhagavata, there is a shloka. Paramahamsas who have realized non-dual reality, they also love and worship Hari. Why? Ittham bhuta harer gunaha. So glorious are the qualities of Hari, so auspicious and glorious. It fills the heart of the enlightened one with joy. They don't want anything from Hari. They don't want anything from Narayana. But they just love Narayana because Narayana is lovable, adorable. So this is another way of looking at it. All of these are helpful. Then how do I find the purpose of life? Here, the broad classification, I've said the wisest thing that I have seen about finding the purpose of life, the broad classification of dharma, artha, kama, moksha, that is most helpful. It is a general psychology of humanity. What do we want in life? So one straight away is we want happiness, pleasure. So kama, pleasure, especially sense pleasures. From the grossest one of eating a rasgulla to very sophisticated ones of classical music, art, all sense pleasure. Kama, desire. Then we want, it includes food, sexuality, all of those things are all included in kama. But then the higher form of happiness is there, which is artha, which is wealth, literally wealth. It also includes achievement, status in life, all sorts of things, power, and which is also necessary for fulfilling our desires of kama. Then there is dharma, morality, ethics, within the limits of which we can pursue artha and kama. But spiritual seekers, our goal is moksha, enlightenment, freedom. So this is the fourfold structure of human desire or human want. And all of us want these four. It's not that we should want, we want it actually. So in some cases, in most cases, that artha and kama desire is very predominant. It's instinctive. The dharma comes with some maturity and moksha comes with more maturity. Desire for moksha comes with more maturity. Now in your case, you have come to this spiritual gathering. Clearly there is a spiritual quest, there is a spiritual question in the mind. at some point there is a faith that these things that spirituality talks about, Vedanta talks about, these are real. If that is so, then there is no way back. Our goal must be God realization, nothing short of that. Vedanta says that is the real goal of all beings. That's what we are all moving to. That's the only purpose of life. It's only that we don't realize it. We are trying to fulfill ourselves, get satisfaction through eating, drinking, making merry, or achievement in the world, through knowledge and art and science and money and power. And then failing in all of this, go higher and higher through moral life, ethical life, and then finally spiritual life. Then finally this non-dual realization that I am the limitless Brahman, what I am truly. So straight answer to your question, Vivekananda's words, the goal of life is God realization, manifestation of the divinity already within us. If we see, this is the most mature way of saying what is the goal of our lives. If you want to check otherwise, just look at one's own life experiences. If I see that I have earned money, that I have a family, already, like Americans say, been there, done that. So now what? What remains? Something higher, greater. And yes, Vedanta says, yes, something greater, far greater remains for us. And it remains for all of us until we find that, until we find God. So the goal of our life is God realization, if you are mature enough to admit that also. Right now, we may not be up and doing about it. You're mature enough to admit it. Our civilization, Hindu civilization, says this is common for all beings, all of us, regardless of who we are, what we believe. It's ultimately moksha is our goal. It just takes maturity to come to that position. In between is dharma. If I feel unfulfilled, that the way I'm leading my life, I've reached a kind of saturation in the things that I'm doing. What next? What is the thing which will motivate me and give me deeper satisfaction? Instead of directly jumping to moksha, one might think about a life of selflessness, of where I expand. As Vivekananda said, expansion is life, contraction is death. If I expand beyond I, me, myself, my close family, and expand beyond that to give without any expectation of return, no more quid pro quo, one will find suddenly new life has come into me, an expanded life, more joy, more peace, more satisfaction. Beyond that lies moksha, mumukshatva.
Marge, just to put in your awareness, there's about 12 people with their hands. 30 minutes have gone by. Just
Okay.
just awareness. Go ahead. Next.
Mukesh. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, yeah, namaste, Swamiji. Thank you for this time. I have just retired 2-3 years ago, and fortunately, I have some time to, go on walks and think about all the things that we've been thinking about. Like I go near the ocean, I see the waves. I try and understand those ideas that are portrayed in our traditions. Also, trying to when I'm just trying to see if I can put everything together. I think you mentioned nature. When you go on nature, how do you bring that into my life? How do I know I've read, many things, like, for example, in the Chandogya, they talk about how the tree is formed from this tiny little tree. From the tiny seed comes out, the universe is inside that tree. Now, how do I find that in my life? How do I see that? Like, like Thakur, when he talks about when you clap, all the birds fly away from the tree, and you instantly know what he's talking about. In the same way, how do I find that experience and really realize it, like we talked about, from nature, from you mentioned duality, from duality to oneness? How can I get that and really experience that while I'm doing these walks?
When I ask the question how, the answer is always yoga. Yoga is an answer to the question how. What happened?
We can see you.
We can hear you.
Everything's
hear me?
fine, Marge. Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you.
So yoga is an answer to the question how. If I want God realization, that experience which Vivekananda is talking about, Sri Ramakrishna is talking about, all the mystics of different religions are talking about, then there are techniques, there are ways of doing it. And sadhus in Uttarakhand said, Tarika hai Mahatma ji, there is a way of doing it. So just like anything in life, here also there is sadhana, a way of doing it, and that sadhana is called yoga. Yogas are of many types. So when I go out for a walk near the ocean, can I do mantra yoga? Can I repeat the mantra if I've taken mantra from initiation from Guru? If I have not, then I should pick one mantra at least for the time being until I get a mantra from a Guru, something like Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, or whatever your tradition is. That might be one way of practicing. Another way, if you're saying nature itself, then think about it. As you just said, from a seed, the whole tree comes out. When Vivekananda looked at nature, he sat down and meditated, looked at nature. And the first thing he noticed was this cyclical nature of nature. That from a seed comes a sapling and that grows into a tree. And then it dies, but it leaves seeds of future trees. In the same way, this entire nature I am seeing, it is a manifestation of some subtle cause. And science also is saying that. If you trace it back, goes back to the Big Bang, unimaginable past. From that, a seed, this entire vast, tremendous, inconceivable universe has emerged from that one seed. If it has emerged from that one seed, it will again cycle back to that one seed. One day, this universe also will end. So this idea that take away from nature the cyclical nature of things. In my own case also that will happen. I am clearly seeing I came from conception to babyhood to childhood, how I'm flowering and growing. But then middle age, then old age, and again it contracts and goes back to the source it came from. Then this is the nature, this is what is nature. Is there something beyond nature which does not go through these cycles, which makes the whole thing possible? Then we come to the conception of Atman or Brahman. So in this way, you can repeat a mantra, you can contemplate what nature, what I'm really seeing. See, I'll leave you with this suggestion. Don't just look at the surface. Nowadays, what happens is even people don't forget to look at the surface also. They're mostly concerned with their phone or iPad or something like that. At least you're looking at the nature. You're looking at the ocean when you're walking, and that's good. You look at the ocean, the plants, the sky, and then subtle vision, not just seeing what I'm seeing or hearing what I'm hearing, but what does it mean? What's going on here? So one thing I pointed out, cyclical nature, that it has a beginning, it changes, develops, and then again deteriorates and goes back to its source. And it is rotating like that. As in my own life, as in the life of one seed and one plant, so in the life of the entire universe. Like this.
Thank you.
Brinda, unmute yourself.
Namaste, Swamiji. Does my experience in life improve as my sense of self improves?
Let me see, where are you?
Marge, if you go to view, the top right-hand corner, you can change your setting there so you can see everybody.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Rao.
Yes.
Should I repeat?
Yes. Please repeat that. Now I can see you.
Yeah. Does my experience in life improve as my sense of who am I improves? Does my experience also improves as my sense improves? True sense. Yeah.
Yes, that is a good question. Yes and no. First of all, why not? The reason is, as life was continuing earlier, now also life will continue. As is my past karma producing the effects of my life. Old age, disease, these will come, people will come into my life and people will go out of my life. These things, whatever has been happening till now, whatever is happening to everybody will keep on happening. Maybe things might get a little better if we are genuinely spiritual, what happens is genuinely spiritual, then the blessings of God are upon you. So things generally go a little easier, but not much. It's mostly external life continues the same way. However, answer is also yes, your experience improves because now you are seeing these experiences with new eyes, with a new eyes, with a new mind, with a new heart. So those same people are now, divinity dwells in all of them. The same experiences where I was chasing the pleasant ones and afraid of the unpleasant ones, now I'm using both pleasant and unpleasant to remain serene and calm in both experiences. So it becomes a practice for me. When I try to do this, then the experience of that same thing happening, but the experience will be different. I will feel it and experience it in a different way, and life will be much happier, much more peaceful.
Graham?
Namaste,
Namaste.
Swamis. My name is Graham. I came to your talk in LA on Sunday last, and following up on that one, your other talks, I wasn't able to get there in person, but on the Thursday, there was during the Q&A, somebody asked a question related to someone that has had an experience, let's say a breakthrough experience, and really experienced the highest truth, let's say, what happens after that. And you talked about, I think you used the words like bearing down on it. Could you please explain that a little bit further for me?
Yes. In the path of knowledge, the attempt is to shift, like a paradigm shift. Right now, our paradigm is, I am this person, and here is the world before me, with which I'm trying to deal with. From my very childhood, earliest memories, I'm trying to deal with it. Get things which I like, and avoid things which I hate or fear or which are unpleasant. Now, in Advaita Vedanta, there is a profound shift of paradigm. I noticed for the first time that it's not a physical body. I have a mind. I have thoughts and emotions and ideas. I'm a person. And the mind is also a tremendous display of various thoughts and emotions and moods coming and going, all to awareness. The discovery of awareness is the beginning of the path of knowledge. And then when I dwell upon it, with the help of these Upanishads, these teachings of about non-duality, I begin to see it's not that there is awareness and there is mind and there is a body and there is a world. Rather, there is awareness, and in awareness, all of these appear. And I am that awareness. This I am that awareness, what's called the witness consciousness. And then further, I realize all those other things, body, mind, world, they are all displays within me. They are not separate from me. When I realize this profound spiritual oneness, this is like a breakthrough. And this happens like an aha moment. It's not something that I have understood or sort of forced myself to think that way, or or intellectually grasp some of these ideas, which are all very good. These are milestones on the way. But there is an actual breakthrough when you see it's a fact. It always was a fact. I never noticed it earlier. In fact, it is the one fact which makes all other facts possible. The idea of this one non-dual awareness. However, now comes the next part of it, which is the world continues. You may call it a display, and you may say it's a display to one non-dual awareness. I am that non-dual awareness. Whatever I call it, the world continues. The body will still appear, and the life of this body and this personality will still continue. Now, how do you manifest this new knowledge? How do you live it? And one must be able to live it. Why? Consider right now the entirely wrong idea that I am just this body mind. Well, we are living it. It's a it's a terrible life, but we are living it. That's the life of samsara. Equally, we must be able to live an enlightened life, the life of living as awareness, living through body-mind as awareness, and nothing but awareness. When we try to do that, we will find a pushback from the body, from the mind, from our memories and conditioning. To overcome that, we must immerse ourselves in this knowledge, this new way of looking at things, this new awareness of awareness. It must become natural, spontaneous, always available, and powerful and effective, able to overcome the old conditionings. So this is called bearing down on it, assimilating it. Vivekananda says, you stay with this knowledge that I am that reality. He said, I am he, so aham, until it tingles with every drop of our blood, he says. This is assimilating that knowledge, or what I said, bearing down on it. You can call it marinating in it, until the paradigm shift is complete and effective, until we are able to live that life as easily and effortlessly we are able to lead this miserable life. Right.
Thank you.
If you ask, how do you do that? There's this whole range of non-dual meditations.
Thank you, Swami.
Subhash, unmute yourself.
Ramos Maharaj, it is nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
My question is continuation of the previous ones, couple of ones that were asked about combining the different yogas, and Swamiji recommends that also. On a daily basis, how do you harmonize all the 4 yogas? For example, you are meditating on your Ishta with a form, and then do you imagine that it dissolves, and that now is you focus on it as a consciousness? Is that one way to do it? Or what is your how will you guide someone to harmonize all 4 in a daily basis?
My first recommendation to you would be to read an article by Swami Bhajananandaji. It's called The Synthesis of Yoga. So the Synthesis of Yoga, it's available. You can look it up online, where he analyzes this concept, this teaching about the harmony of yogas. How do you harmonize the 4 yogas in your life? I'll just mention a few ways and then stop, because it requires a detailed answer. For example, one might do it in different times of the day. A very crude and simple approach to this question. How do you have the 4 yogas in your life? Well, you get up early and meditate. That's your dhyana yoga or raja yoga. And then you study Vedanta or Gita, Upanishad for some time, and that's your jnana yoga. And then you go out and work and offer all the work to the Lord. That's your karma yoga. And the evening you come back and do arati and sing bhajans or chant. That's your bhakti yoga. Now, different yogic practices at different times of the day, in different occupations, different activities, let us say. This can be done, and people do it sometimes that way. However, the problem with this is scattered, and the attitude is not common. The Jnana Yoga's attitude of I am Brahman is quite different from I am the devotee. So you are practicing different things at different times of the day. So this is, but it's one way of doing it. It's actually, you can still do it that way. So, and then there's another way of doing it is making one your primary. So basically you are a bhakta. And in the morning, I meditate on my beloved Ishta Devata. That's bhakti for me. And then I study the life and teachings of Krishna, Ramakrishna, whatever it is. I study something about, that's my jnana yoga practice. It's still bhakti. It's about God only. And then throughout the day I work, sometimes in the temple, sometimes at home, my domestic work, official work, whatever is career, all of that I offer as puja to my beloved God. It is still bhakti yoga. Although it's karma, it's still bhakti yoga. And in the evening, of course, I do arati and I sing songs and I pray. It's classic bhakti yoga. Now notice, for this practitioner, all of it is bhakti yoga. Although in outward form, it might look like meditation, it might look like karma, it might look like study, it might look like bhakti, of course, like that. That's another way. Swami Vivekananda was asked when he taught harmony of yogas, How do you harmonize that? How does one learn the harmony of the 4 yogas? And his answer was cryptic: by living with one who has harmonized them in their own lives. Probably that's the right answer. You have to live with these highly advanced, if not enlightened masters, and you see how they do it in their own lives. I thought about it, and the most wonderful Swamis I have seen, it is actually very difficult to say whether they are jnanis or bhaktas or karma yogis. They seem to be all of that. One of them predominantly, and the others are also, all elements are there in their lives.
Study yoga, unmute yourself. I'm not sure what your name
Hi.
is.
Oh, I didn't know. It's Mira. Hi, everyone.
Mira.
It's lovely to see everyone again. Thank you, Swamis, for this. When I was in the Vedanta Society, I left with this impression that part of God is that God doesn't create the fire, rather, He is the fire. So I left, and that was mind-blowing. Now I'm looking at consciousness with the word prana and that, and I'm trying to reconcile how the relationship, or how, I'll leave it to you to explain consciousness and prana in the same sentence.
All right. This is a difficult question, but it's worthwhile. I'll answer it elliptically, indirectly. I'll just give you 4 conceptions of the divine, and that will clear up things, hopefully. 4 conceptions. One is an entirely personal God. So, for me, Jesus, or Krishna, or Ramakrishna, that is God. That person, wholly personal. The person of Jesus Christ, the person of Krishna or Ramakrishna, that is God. Now, that is a personal approach to God. And one it's basically a relationship of love and adoration. That's one way of understanding the divine. A larger, wider way of understanding the divine is, no, it's the God of the universe, an impersonal God who is also omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, who created this universe. That's the definition of God, by the way, in all theistic religions. All religions which believe in God, one common thing they have is God is the creator of all that there is, the creator of this universe. So that is God in heaven. It's not that person, it's God in heaven. And that person now becomes an incarnation of God in heaven. Jesus is the son of Father, our Father in heaven. Krishna is the incarnation of Vishnu or Narayana. So we have the next conception of the divine. Whom are you worshipping? Whom do you believe in? Whom do you pray to? It is the God of the universe. God who is in heaven. God. So that God I worship, omnipresent, omniscient. Yes, in many forms, also without any form also. So that's the idea behind Saguna Brahman in Vedanta, as Shiva, as Narayana, or as the Divine Mother, Shakti, or Durga, or Kali. Multiple conceptions are there in Hinduism, but they all refer to the same, the God of the universe, the creator God, all-powerful. That's the second conception of the divine. The third conception of the divine, oh, every time I do this, the balloons come up here. We have to fix that. Or not, it's nice. The third conception of the divine is when you have not only God in the universe, but that God is in and through everything. It is that God which is manifest in this universe and is in the hearts of all beings and in all persons. See, earlier I related to God in heaven, and all of these beings have been created by God, or they are all subservient to God, whatever. But now I see God is in everybody. Everybody around me, people I like, people I do not like, people I do not know, they're all, God is in them. Immanent, the idea of immanent God. Not only human beings, all living beings, not only living beings, all non-living entities also. Everywhere there's a presence of God. And that's the third conception of the divinity, the immanent divinity, present in creation, everywhere. There you have that one divinity as prana also. Prana also is that divinity. As is fire, as is wind and space and air and water, all of that. As is body, the body made of the 5 elements. And then the fourth conception of divinity is what we talked about in Advaita Vedanta, non-dual Vedanta, that quite apart from creation, quite other than names and forms and universe and bodies and minds and animals and human beings, living beings, non-living beings, quite apart from it, there is the absolute existence, consciousness, bliss, Sat Chit Ananda. And you are that absolute. This is the real you, other than body and mind. The real you is the absolute, Tat Tvamasi. So these are four conceptions of God, and you can see they are vaster and vaster conceptions. First, the perfect individual, the divine individual, the adorable, the God of love, Christ, Krishna, Ramakrishna, whoever you worship as God, a personal God. Then the God of theistic God of religion, God who creates this universe, creator, preserver, destroyer of the universe, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, God who lives in heaven, transcendent God. Third, not only transcendent, but immanent God, God in and through as this in this universe, as prana, as you asked. And fourth, the absolute reality, beyond all these, the display of samsara, the display of this world or body, that absolute Satchidananda, which you are. That's the fourth conception. Thank you.
Meena, keep your hand up until Swamiji completes answers. No, I mean the online hand. You can ask the question.
Hari Om, Swamiji. Thank you for your time. Mine is a little more it's about, we were talking about all the four yogas, and the challenge I'm having is in terms of breath work, because I hear a lot that breath work is, really good. And, even when we say Upadesha Sara and all that, the connection between mind and the breath, how you can use breath work, to calm your mind. But the challenge I'm having is every time I've tried breath work, I have a lot of reactions, Swamiji. Like I either would do a lot of crying, or I snap, or, literally my family begs me, can you not do it? I mean, is it common to have such reactions? Why is that? So I always, I'll try one form of breath work, I'll come out of it. I'll try another form, I'll come out of it. Recently, last few days back, I tried what's called, it's the, I just wanted to name it correctly. It's called the, it's called the Wim Hof breathing. I don't know if you've heard of that. And someone advised me on that. I tried it and it has been disastrous. I had a breakdown at work and I snapped at people. So are these things common, or, and though, should I even bother about breath work? I'd like your comments, Swamiji.
Yes, I can share what I think about it. The breath is connected to the mind. The reason breath is emphasized is directly controlling the mind is difficult. As Arjuna says to Krishna in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, one might as well try to control the wind. It's too difficult. However, one can control the breath. The breath is voluntarily under our control. It's one thing which goes on involuntarily, but if you want to seize control of it, you can seize control voluntarily. So that's why the breath, the yogis noticed that when you are excited or angry, breathing becomes shallow and fast. When you are peaceful, breathing becomes deep and balanced. So they had the idea, suppose I change the breath, suppose I control the breath, will my mind change also? And they found that it does. So they found a good way of catching hold of something which they can use to change the mind. So that's the whole purpose of breath work. Then the reactions you're talking about, they are not common. However, they are not surprising. If you do certain amount of breath work intensively, not a little bit, but a little more than put in some effort into it, it can have reactions. It can have reactions. It touches some core of our mind. It's like poking a beehive. So sometimes it can have these reactions. Don't do it. If you want to do at all, want to do breath work, do the simplest possible. Follow the in-breath and out-breath. When the in-breath goes in without trying to control it, notice it and mentally count 1. When the in-breath changes to the out-breath, notice it, count 2. When the out-breath is finished and the in-breath starts again, say 3, mentally. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then the next in-breath, say 9. Out-breath is 8. In-breath is 7. Go back to 1. And then leave it. No holding of the breath.
Just do this twice, Swamiji. I mean,
No,
like
just do it before your meditation. Whenever you want to do meditation, start with that. It'll just calm down the mind and focus the mind. That's it. Often the reactions are due to holding the breath. The kumbhaka, 3 parts of pranayama.
Oh, and I'm drinking coffee.
Puraka, which is in breath.
I think that gabapentin just made me.
Oh, somebody,
tired.
you have to.
Yeah, who's?
Somebody.
Oh, yeah, I feel good. Great.
You have to see who is.
Yeah, muted.
Muted. So there is in breath, which is called puraka. There is holding the breath, which is called kumbhaka. There is releasing the breath, which is called rechaka. And there are various multiple combinations of these in pranayama, the traditional yogic pranayama. But it is the holding the breath in certain ratios which can trigger emotional outbursts. It can trigger old subconscious traumas. So there's some danger there. That's why you have to have people trained in pranayama who can guide you through that, if at all necessary. I don't think it's necessary. Sri Ramakrishna was quite clear about this. He said, bhakti by itself, intense love of God, can give you the same results as breath work. It can give you, but automatically you'll get the results of breath work. All right.
Seema.
Yeah, Pranam Swamiji, and thank you for this session. My question is, and I just wanted to, we don't all, we are not enlightened, but once in a while we do get these small enlightening thoughts. And about the question that Graham had, awareness. One day just a thought came into my mind that it's like a miner's headlight, and it only shows within what's in that circle. And that's what I thought to be awareness. If we are not aware of something else, and then somebody might be saying something else, I didn't hear it. So was my little understanding. But anyway, my question is, can God predict when we humans will surrender to him and be God realized? But God does not interfere in our sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic choices. But then, do we have free will?
All big questions. But the first thing you mentioned was interesting. That's what's called attention, not consciousness. When you say like a beam of light focusing on something, and you're aware of it, and you're not aware of anything else, that's called attention. And what is attention? You are awareness itself. That is reflected and channeled through the mind and the senses, and then you focus on something. That's attention. And that's a limited thing, but that reveals, that gives knowledge, and the rest of it is unknown. And that beam of attention can be changed. You can focus it this way or that way through seeing. You can go it to the ears. That is attention. Beyond attention is the mind itself. Beyond the mind is consciousness, which is illumining the mind and the senses. And consciousness is that which powers our attention. It is the power behind our attention, or the light behind our attention. Now, can God predict when we are going to become enlightened? Using God language, I'll use 2 kinds of language. One is God language and one is the Kashmiri Shaiva language, which will give the same answer. One answer is yes. God, being omniscient, knows everything. Knows when we will turn from worldliness into spiritual life, how long we will pursue spiritual life as spiritual seekers, and when we will finally become enlightened. Yes, God knows everything. And if we pray sincerely to God, God can, by the grace of God, the process can be speeded up. This is one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, in Kashmiri Shaivism, they say you are Shiva itself. And it is your sweet will. You are playing. You want to play as Seema right now. Shiva wants to play as Seema right now. All right, is doing that. You want to be worldly and enjoy and suffer in the world. Shiva wants to do that, and that's what Shiva is doing. And in your case, you have matured enough to be a spiritual seeker. Well, Shiva now wants to be a spiritual seeker. And if you say, no, I want enlightenment, well, that's the nature of a spiritual seeker. When Shiva really wants enlightenment, Shiva will become enlightened immediately. What can stop Shiva? So instead of saying, God knows when I will become enlightened, the Kashmiri Shaivas have a very cute way of putting it. They say, you know. You are none other than God. You are actually Shiva in this contracted form. And as long as it is Shiva's sweet will and pleasure to be the sentient being seeking enlightenment, he will do that. The moment Shiva wants to be enlightened, at that instant, Shiva will become an enlightened being. That's another way of looking at it. Whether we have free will or not, big question, no time.
Thank you.
We'll take one more question and wrap it up.
Advait, unmute yourself.
Namaste, Swamiji. Thank you. As one immerses oneself on the path of Jnana Yoga, from ignorance to knowledge and towards enlightenment, how does one measure progress? I think you touched upon the answer in an earlier question, but that was the big question at the back of my mind. How do we know we are moving forward in the right direction and making progress? Thank you.
You know, one answer to this would be, it's not an important question. Why? Once I have decided that God realization is my goal, this is my life, this defines my life, this is the most precious thing to me in my life. So I'll do it regardless of what. If people tell me that I'm making good progress, great. If someone tells me I'm not progressing at all, too bad, I'll try to do better. But this is my life. It's not something that I have to progress, complete, finish, and be done with, and then move on to something else. Not at all. This is the end game. This is the final point, the final evolution of human life through lifetimes. This is where you come to when you become most mature. But on the other hand, it's also a relevant question. Sri Ramakrishna was asked this question a number of times. So I'll give you two answers and wrap it up. One answer is what Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Ishwarya Anurag Vishaya Virag. The more we feel pulled towards spiritual life, the more important it seems, the more God seems real, or I love God, I want God, whichever paradigm you are following. If you're Advaitic paradigm, that the path of Advaita, self-realization becomes very important in your life. Other things become secondary. If they're going well, well and good. If they're not going well, too bad, I'll put up with them. But my central, it's not that I'm spiritual, why aren't things in my life getting better? I'm not really bothered. I'm spiritual and I'm the spiritual seeker, and that's the central fact of my life. Forever, from now on. So Ishwarya Anurag Vishaya Virag, pull towards God and a dispassion for Vishaya, for worldliness, lack of interest. Some people say, as I become seriously interested in Vedanta, I'm beginning to lose motivation and interest in worldly things. Good, they get worried. Nothing to be worried about. As long as your life is fulfilled through devotion, through knowledge, through service, through meditation, good. You can fill up your life with these 4 yogas. Another one is the negativities will be reduced. So one sign of progress is that which used to trouble me earlier, anger. Well, I used to get angry every day, but now maybe once in 15 days or once in 30 days. I used to fly into a rage earlier. Now it's a burst of irritation. It goes away, comes and goes away. Earlier, the recovery time would be long. It would take long days and days. I would ponder upon it and justify myself, and it would keep coming back. Now I regain my cool very fast. So these are different ways in the negativities have gone down. These are good signs. But regardless, suppose somebody says, I thought I was making progress. The other day I really lost my temper and I became furious. And I'm thinking, have I made any progress at all? Don't worry like that. Don't worry about it at all. You are interested in meditation and in study and in devotion and in service. You are interested in the 4 yogas, and we are trying to practice them. Good, that's it. That's it. Keep doing it. Those results will come up themselves. Don't be in a hurry for them. If they're there in your life, you're noticing those results, good for you. If you're not noticing any particular progress, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Keep to it. As somebody said, once you have come to this path, what else will you do? What else is better than this?
So true. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's wrap it up now.
Yes, Marge, thank you so much. Marge, just I want to make one point of clarification because this came up in the retreat. It's also coming up in your Q&A. Would you say regarding this yoga, people, sometimes they refer to our orientation to reality as yoga. There's this, how we think of God, you said, two basic attitudes, one in the impersonal, one in the personal. This, Swami Bhajan has referred to as marga. You have an orientation to reality. Either you're in the impersonal marga or the personal marga, jnana or bhakta marga. But within those, you have the means to approach that reality. So sometimes there's a little confusion about our approach to reality and the means to reality. Would you say marga is a better term to use instead of yoga? Saying marga is like, I'm a jnana marga. I follow the path of jnana marga. I follow the path of bhakti marga, as opposed to yoga, because every time it's confusion on yoga as being the means and also our orientation to the reality itself.
Yep, you can put it that way. That might be more helpful. That by orientation, I am devoted and I'm relating to that ultimate reality as a person.
Correct.
So I'm coming from the heart, and I have a devotional, loving relationship with God.
Would you say maybe a consciousness that responds to me, as opposed to the identity, right? The basic. Let's just get to the sum essence of this. Yeah.
Yes, or you can put it as Sri Ramakrishna put it very beautifully. What would you prefer? Would you like to taste sugar or would you like to become sugar?
That's true. Yes. Yes. We'd like to thank Swami Sarvapriyananda. He just came. He had the Southern California tour. 1 week he was there. Just came yesterday from Southern California to New York. So he's going adjusting the East Coast. So thank you for the time. Again, thank you, Marge, for the retreat. Such an impressive retreat. We've asked him to, we're on the process of working on another retreat, hopefully for next year. And so Swami Sarvapriyananda, if we have a retreat, Swami Sarvapriyananda has agreed to be there. So we're so thankful for that. We're also in the midst of maybe doing some other type of forums where Swami Sarvapriyananda may attend. So one thing just before we wrap up is 2 points. People asking about videos about the retreat. So Richard, who is the videographer, the photographer, is currently in the process of trying to do a good job. He's color correcting, he's doing the sound, he's really doing a really good job. So once we have his video, we will get it to you. But as of right now, he's still in the process of doing it. So he wants to make it a perfect job. So so we're waiting for him to get it done for us. Other thing is that we'll have 3 more sessions with the three other speakers coming up as you've been given the dates. And finally, you guys have asked about Vedanta and the elderly, what we can do for the elderly population. So you may have received an email on August 14th. August 14th, we will have a brainstorming session, whoever would like to come, to talk about the issues of the elderly population and how Vedanta and its resources can help in our growth and the obstacles that we face in the elderly population. And this is meant for both the care receivers and also the caregivers, because people who are giving care also face burnouts. How do we approach the caregiver and the care receivers? So if you know anybody who'd like to attend that, you're more than welcome to come to that brainstorming session. The idea is come up with an idea and just express your idea, and you'll have an email, so you'll see what it says there. So thank you, Swami Sarvapriyananda. Marge, would you like to say a closing chant to end us off?
Yes, and thank you to Swami Harinamanandaji also. He is the spirit behind all these wonderful retreats. And I do hope you put together another retreat at Asilomar, which is really, really very good, very appreciated by so many people.
Thank you.
Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in the next
Thank
following
you.
week.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Swamiji.
Swamiji.
Thank you,
Maharaj,
Swamiji.
Pranam.
Thank you, Swamiji.